What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, Gibson Gamer, and today we're back with Planet Zoo. And you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are going to start work on our Africa section of our zoo. So before we start with our first animal, I thought we could make the African section feel like you're actually in Africa. So throughout the entire section, there's going to be these little outposts with some African cultural decorations and all that. This one is about Africa and drumming, because if you know anything about Africa, they're very invested in music. So what's going to happen is in the pole's like the center of the area, and we're going to have a bunch of drums around it. It's kind of like a drum circle for all of the Africans and tribe people to play their drums, which of course you can't have that in the game, but it just makes it feel more authentic. And we have the lead drum as well as the other drums, and we have rocks for the seats. So we're just trying to liven up the place, make it look like you're actually in Africa. So when you're walking through the zoo, and when we finally do our zoo tour, it's going to feel like you're actually in Africa, because this won't be the only section where you have a bunch of African buildings just clamped in together. Even the staff buildings are African. Everything in the African section is going to make you feel like you're walking through Africa. If it's Xhosa or Zulu or any kind of African tribe. So throughout the entire section, we're going to have different African tribes, their sort of culture, and we're going to just represent as many African tribes as we can. But now we have to make our first animal, which will be the aardvark. So at first, I actually wanted to have camels, but then I just remembered when I was making the habitat, it was too small for camels. So I started researching what animals are from Africa that are small enough to fit in this exhibit. So then I decided to go with an aardvark. So while making the habitat, I thought to myself, let's make these shelters feel like you're in Africa. Everything is in the African section is going to feel like it's in Africa. So like the shelter for the aardvarks is just this giant hut, which is very African inspired. So, and also almost the entire African section is going to be covered in sand. There's going to be barely any grass in any enclosure, in anything. Now, I didn't know much about aardvarks before making this video, but I just found out they're commonly confused with anteaters, which is very crazy because they look absolutely nothing like anteaters.
Are you sure about that?
Another crazy fact about aardvark is that they're also mistaken for pigs, which I've seen pigs before. They look nothing like pigs, and I'm very sure about that. So aardvarks are one of the few animals in Planet Zoo that use the burrows, so I decided to add a burrow. But I also wanted to kind of hide it, so I put some rocks on it. It still looks very out in the open, but it looks less noticeable, and it blends in more. So this build has taken inspiration from the Detroit Zoo. And in the Detroit Zoo, the aardvarks have like this just rigid and rough terrain. Like there's like this giant, it's everywhere. There's just rocks and it's very rough. So I decided to replicate that with some rocks and just sink down. Like this is like the main part of the habitat and the focal point of the habitat. So it makes the habitat stand out from the other habitats that will be in our African section. And if any of you know about the African savannas, you know that the African savanna does not have a lot of greenery. So I'm just spreading some small weeds around with one tree, because the African savanna really doesn't have many trees, which is what I actually find really interesting about African savannas, is that they have vegetation, it's just not as much as deserts, which makes me like savannas more than I like deserts. Actually, fun fact about savannas, they are my favorite type of biome in nature. African savannas also have some abundances of water, so instead of having a massive lake covering a third of the habitat, I decided to add one of those pipe things, and it was attached inside of the hut. The aardvark hut, we're going to call it the aardvark hut. That's what this shelter is going to be called. And also the path for the staff is going to be more red to, more emphasize the whole African theme. Everything here is going to be Africa. Like, there's not going to be a single thing that's not going to be African styled. So I also added these picnic bench umbrellas, because, Africa can get hot, so we're going to make sure the guests get shade. And now we're going to move on to our staff area, which, again, is going to be very African-inspired. Basically, for now, these are just going to be built in African style, but later on, by next episode, when we do our next habitat, this will be more decorated, and it'll feel like African culture, even though it's the staff area. So in this staff area, we have a trade center, we have a keeper hut, vet center, quarantine, and that's it, really. So while I'm building the staff area, let's talk about the aardvarks. Aardvarks are actually of least concern, so they're not endangered, which is good. So that's we still have a lot of aardvarks in the wild. They can consume up to 50,000 ants and termites in a single night. In a single night, that's crazy. And speaking of night, they are nocturnal creatures, so we'll see if the aardvarks in our zoo will be nocturnal as well. Now, unlike Planet Coaster 2, which we'll see next episode, this park will barely be shown at nighttime. The reason why I say Planet Coaster will be shown at nighttime is because our next episode for Planet Coaster, we will show a cyberpunk-style futuristic city, and it's going to look really cool. I already recorded it, and the reason why we're going to show that is because by the time this is going to be out, the new update for Planet Coaster it will be released tomorrow, and I thought, let's start on our next section before we finish Disneyland. But that's for Planet Coaster. We're on Planet Zoo. Also, I don't know if you guys care or not, but I'm going to tell you anyways. The reason why you're not seeing my live commentary of what's going on in the game and why it's a time-lapse is because when I'm building these buildings and parks and all that, I don't talk a lot. So, and I usually, when I'm building, like during this recording, I was listening to a podcast. During my Planet Coaster, I was listening to, I don't know, a movie or watching a movie or listening to a podcast or some music. So, listening to music or watching something helps me creatively think of something more than talking the whole time. So that's why you probably won't ever see me do live commentary unless it's during a live stream. But I don't think I'll do live streams that often as I used to. I am also currently working on some designs and sort of graphics for what our park will be called and names and logos and all that. Can't tell you what my options are, but there will be a video soon with a poll asking for what the park should be named. So I hope you guys will like my ideas, and we'll see which one wins and what the park will be named. So the park will get a name very soon. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you want to see that. And yeah, can't wait to find out what you guys think. So that's going to end the episode right here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We made this African sort of area where you can take pictures and all that. You got the staff area behind that with some African huts. I've got to fix that. I'll fix the clipping and all that later. And we built our aardvarks. And let's just take a look at what we built so far. I made a Welcome to Africa sign. It was pretty easy to build, actually. I actually made that off camera, so sorry about that. And yeah. And here's the look at our aardvarks. Now, I haven't picked out a name for the female. I know the male is going to be named Arthur after Arthur Reed. We all know who Arthur is. And if you don't know who Arthur is, this is Arthur. And now we got an overhead of what the habitat looks like, and probably what the thumbnail's going to look like. I don't know what the thumbnail is, but we're recording. But hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys later. Bye.